Okay, applications that are submitted through GrantsGov must successfully be at GrantsGov no later than 4 p.m. Eastern Time on the closing date. There is subsequently that in the GrantsGov submission validation process is described in the detail below. The process can be completed with the time consuming. You're strongly advised to initiate the process as soon as possible to plan for time to resolve technical problems if necessary. Note the validation does not mean that your application has been accepted as complete or has been accepted for review. Rather, the GrantsGov verifies the certainty parts of the application have been submitted. You strongly recommend that before you begin writing this application, immediately initiate complete the registered steps. You should reach the registration carefully before registration. The steps may take as much as 4 weeks to complete. This time should be factored in into timely electronic submission in order to avoid unexpected delays, which could result in rejection of application. The site of the contains also a registration checklist to help the application walk through the process. We strongly recommend you download the organization regulation checklist and prepare the required registered. Once again, done numbers. Your next step is the registration processing username process with the GrantsGov to become an authorized organization representative. Authorized organization representative will need to know the DUNS number of the organization, which will they have been submitted applications to complete this process. To read more than the detailed instruction for the creating the profile of the GrantsGov. Visit the GrantsGov web grants application organization registration step 3 username password. After creating a profile of the GrantsGov, the easy business contact the representative of your organization will contact a listed for the SAMs of the receive an element to the grant of the authorized organizational representative permission to submit the application on the behalf of their organization. Easy's POC will then log in to grants approve the individual of the authorization organization representative, thereby giving him the permission to submit applications to learn more of the authorization. Visit grants web grants application organization registration step 4 authorization or AOR status via grant gov's web grants organization registration step 5 AOR status. Application submitted through the grants gives constitutes submission and electronically signed application registration accounts for the grants and accounts for creation with the GrantsGov, the Easy Big POC establishes an AOR. The application is submitted with the grants. The name of the AOR on file will be inserted with the signature line of the application. You must be registered individual which applies. Make legally binding commitments for organization of the AOR. This is often missed and is crucial to validation submissions. The registered application submits an application with the grants of the Gov. The electrical timestamp is generated with the system. The application is successfully received in the grants Gov within the 2 business day of the application submission. The grants Gov will send an application to the 2 email messages provided with the status of the application progress of the system. The first email sent almost immediately will contain a tracking number will confirm the receipt of the application with the grants Gov. With the second email will indicate the application has either successfully validated or being rejected. To the errors, the grants will rejection with the application registration in SAM is required is expired. Only applications have successfully submitted with the deadline later successfully validated with the consideration. If you're sole responsible to ensure the time of submission, while it is not required for the application to be successfully validated before the deadline for the submission, while it's not required for the application to be successfully validated before the deadline for submission, it is prudent to reserve time for the deadline in any case it is necessary to resubmit the application that has not been successfully validated. Therefore, enough should be allotted with the submission of 2 business days, and if applicable, additional time to address the received validation for the resubmission, and additional with 2 business days for each ensuing submission. It is important to note that enough time is not allotted or the rejection notice is received to the due date and the application will not be considered. To ensure the consideration of the components of the application must be saved as a docx, or XLSX, RTF, or PDF files. If submitted in any other format, the application bears the risk of compatible or other issues will prevent the Department of Labor from consideration. Application will attempt to open the document but will not take any additional measures in the event of the problems with the opening. We strongly advise applicants use the various tools and documents, including frequently asked questions, which are available on application resources, GrantsGov, web grants, application, frequently asked questions. We encourage the new prospective applications to view the online tutorial, the Grants 101, a plain English guide to the ETA competitive grants available for the Workforce 31 at workforce31.org page. Grant toolkits receive updated information about critical issues, new types for users, other time-sensitive updates as information available. You must subscribe to the GrantsGov updates at grantsgov.web grants manage subscription. If encountering a problem with the GrantsGov, do not find answers any of the other resources, call 1-800-518-472 4726 606 545 5035 to speak with a customer service representative. Email support of the A at Grants. The contract center is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It is closed to federal holidays. Late application for the application submitted to the Grant Gov's only application that have been successfully submitted no later than 4 p.m. the Eastern Time on the closing date of the lend and successfully validated will be considered. They take a significant risk by waiting a last day submit through Grants. Any hard copy application received for the exact date time specified for the receipt of the designated notice will not be considered unless the received before awards it has been properly awarded. It was addressed as sent by the U.S. Postal Service postmark no later than the 5th date of the calendar date before specified for the receipt of the applicant. Applicant required for the receive the 20th an application is required to be received on the 20th on the month that must be postmarked by the 15th of the month. Sent professional overnight delivery services addressed no later 1 working day before the date of the sub-receipts. The applicant's postmarked means printed or stamped, otherwise placed an impression accepted postal marriage machine impression that is readily identified with other actions as is defined as is having supply affixed and date of mailing employee of the U.S. Postal Service. Therefore, you should request that the postal clerk has placed a legally hand cancellation bullseye postmark on the receipt of the package. Failure to adhere to the instruction on the basis of the determination of the application will not be filed timely and not considered. Evidence of timely submission of the professional overnight delivery services must be demonstrated by equal reliable evidence created by the delivery service provider indicating time and places in the receipt. Intergovernmental review. The fundings of opportunities not subject to the executive order of 12372 in governmental review federal programs. Funding restrictions. A proposed project cost must set necessary responsible in accordance with the federal guidelines. Determination allowable contents will be in accordance with the cost principle not found in other office management budget and uniform administrative requirements. Cost principle audit requirements of the federal awards uniform guidance code of the 2 code federal regulations part 200 disallowed also these charges of the grants to the grantor agencies of the representative determinations not be allowed in accordance with the applicable federal costs and the principles other conditions contained in the grant applications were successfully or not and will not entitle with reimbursement of the pre-awarded cost. Indirect costs is specified in the uniform guidance cost of the principal. Indirect costs are those that may have been incurred of the common joint of the objectives common cannot be identified by the particular final cost objective. An indirect cost rate is required when an organization operates under the more than one grant or other activity of the federal assisted or not. You have 2 options of claim reimbursement of indirect costs. You may use the NICRA, the cost allocation plan supplied by the Federal Cognizant Agency. If you do not have an NICRA or CAP, you have pending NICRA, CAP. Either case shows that include estimated indirect costs of your budget. Into your budget. At the time of the award of the grantee, officer will refuse the amount of 10% of the salaries, wages to support indirect costs. Will release the amount of 10% of the salaries and wages to support the indirect costs. Within 90 days of the award, you are required to submit an acceptable indirect cost proposal to the CAP, Federal Cognizant Agency, obtaining professional indirect costs. See Section 4B4 Indirect Cost Rate Agreements for information on the submission requirements. Option 2, if any organization has not ever received or negotiated indirect cost rates, the exception noted for the 2 CFR 414 of the cost principles may elect to charge the diminished rate of 10% modified total direct costs is the C Title 2 Code for Regulations 268 of the definition which may be identified. You have chosen the option methodology must be used consistently with the federal awards until the time it is chosen to negotiate for indirect costs, which may apply to do at any time. See the CFR 414 for information for the D- rate. 2. The administrative costs. Under the FOA, the entity receives the grant to carry out the project. Program may not use more than 10% of the amount of the grant paid. Administrative costs associated with the program project. Administrative costs could be direct and indirect costs. Administrative costs do not need to be identified separately for the programs and the costs on the SFA SF 424A budget information form. However, they must track through the grantee's accounting systems a claim for additional costs. For the indirect costs, the application must obtain indirect cost rate agreement from the federal cognizant agency as specified by approved. Salary and bonus limitations. Note that the fund is appropriated under the heading Employment and Training and Appropriation statutes may be used in the recipient, subrecipient of the such funds to be may pay salary bonuses of an individual, either direct costs or indirect costs, at a rate of the excess of executive level 2. This limitation does not apply to the vendors providing the goods services defined in the audit requirements of the Office Management Guidance. C2 Office Management Guidance, Uniform Guidance 2 CFR 200 Subpart F. Whether the states and recipients such as funds state establish lower limits of salary bonuses of the receiving salaries and the bonuses from the subrecipients, taking into account of the factors including the relative cost of living and the compensating levels of comparable state local government employees, the size of organizations, administrative federal programs involved, including employment training agency. Administrative programs. C. Public Law 111376, Division H, Title 1, Section 105, Training and Employment Guidance, letter number 0506 for the further clarification. 4. Intellectual property rights. The federal government reserves a paid, non-exclusive, irrevocable license to reproduce and publish otherwise used and authorize other use to the federal purpose. The copyright in all products is developed under the grant, including a subaward contract under the grant of the subaward. Any rights of the copyright to which the recipient, subrecipient, contract purchase ownership under the award, including but not limited to the curricula, training modules, technical assistance products, any of the related materials. Such uses included but not limited to the right to modify, distribute such product worldwide by means of electronically or otherwise. The grantee may not use federal funds to pay any royalty license for use of copyrighted work. The cost of acquiring by purchase of copyright in a work where the department has the license or right for a free use for each such revenues. If the revenue generated for the selling product develop the grant funds, including the intellectual property, these revenues are program income. Program is income but is added to the grant and must be expected of the allowable grant activities. Additional federal government has the right to require intellectual property developed under the competitive federal award process and license to create Commons attribution license. A license allows a subsequent user to compile, copy, distribute, and transmit additional copyrighted work that requires such users to attribute the work in the manner specified in the receipt. If applicable and a Creative Commons attribution license is not required, the following needs to be on all products developed in the whole part of the grants fund. The workforce product was founded in the grant award of the U.S. Department of Labor to Training Administration. The product was created by the grantee does not necessarily reflect the official position of the U.S. Department of Labor. U.S. Department of Labor makes no guarantee, warranties, assurances of any kind express implied with respect to such information, including any information on link sites, including but not limited to currencies, information, completeness, timelessness, usefulness, adequacy, contain, availability, ownership. This product is copyrighted by the institution that is created. Internal use of the organization and or personal use of the individual non-commercial purposes is measurable. All other uses are required prior authorization of copyright owners. 5. The use of grants or participation wages. Grants funds are prohibited of directly paying the participation wages. See discussion for allocated allowable costs in section 14B, allowable activities. 6. Fair Labor Standards Acts. To exempt the project the enrolled individual under 18, applications must comply with the Child Labor Provisions Act of the Fair Labor Standard Act, particularly hazard occupations provisions where they apply to the employment of 16, 17-year-olds in non-agricultural occupations. C29 See It Code Federal Regulations 57 570 5068. Other submission requirements. Withdrawal applications may be withdrawn by written notice of the grant officer at any time before an award is made. 5. The application review process information.